What if you had a guide who could tell you how to bridge a gap between who you are today and who you're destined to be? What if each week you could hear a story of someone who has tried and succeeded, or perhaps tried and failed, but learned something in the process? Limitless Spirit is a weekly podcast where host Helen Todd interviews guests about topics and personal stories on defining life's purpose, pursuing personal growth, and developing a deeper faith in Christ.
In my medical school, during my residency program, we got a call from Bangladesh that found my mom dead in her room. So we don't know the exact story because nobody was at home, but they found her body in the room. So it felt like that someone killed her. So that was not a natural death. So then the question comes like, okay, what happened here? Where was God?
Welcome to this episode of the Limitless Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, Helen Todd. I got an interesting comment from someone on the Limitless Spirit Facebook page. By the way, if you're not following, I recommend you join the almost 17,000 others. You can just look us up on Facebook, Limitless Spirit Podcast. I am always amazed by interesting discussions that arise in the comment section, and also intrigued by the fact how many non-believers visit this page and take time to leave their opinion. So the most recent comment from an angry gentleman said, "There is no God. How many prayers did you offer against COVID? How many prayers to save Ukraine? And what happened?" And so I felt like today's interview is a great response to these questions. My guest on this episode is Dr. Peter Macfield, a family practice doctor who serves his patients in Michigan, along with his pediatrician wife, Masuma. They both were born and raised in the Muslim country of Bangladesh. Peter's mother was a devout Christian and served her country as a medical missionary. And Peter has had a challenging faith journey, including the death of his father when he was just 1.5 years old, meeting and trying to convert his future wife, who came from an affluent Muslim family, and the sudden death of his mother while he was 8,000 miles away living in America. In our conversation, we talk about how these events drew Peter closer to God rather than driving him away. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the Limitless Spirit Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm so thankful being with you here. And then, hope. And then I know God has a plan. There's a reason we're actually talking to each other, and we met, and then now we are here. So let God be glorified through our discussion,
I am in complete agreement with you. I really felt it a privilege to connect with you and your family through your passion for missions, and got to serve with you on the mission field in Mexico and in the Republic of Georgia, and watched how you used your medical skills, your talent in helping people who don't have access to medical care or perhaps just needed an ear to listen to them. But I'm also very fascinated with your story, which I got to hear part of your testimony. And of course, your wife, my wonderful friend Masuma, and her story. But I'm really intrigued by your personal testimony, and I don't think I've ever heard it apart from your family story. So I find it very interesting that you were born in a country that is not Christian, in a Muslim country mostly, but in a Christian family in Bangladesh. And so can you share a little bit about your family's background and also how you personally came to know Jesus?
Mm-hmm. So as you know, in Bangladesh, like 98% is Muslim, and then Christian is still like a 0.4, 0.5% or below that. dad came from Catholic background, and I think they're 3 or 4 generation they are Catholic, and my mom was second generation of Christian. So they all came from either background from Hindu or Hindu, then Muslim, then either part of their Christian or part of the, but most of them are background as from the Hindu in that area. So my mom and dad both they met in medical school, but is marrying between the Baptist and Catholic is also rare form. It's impossible to happen, but that happened. And my grandpa was a pastor, so my dad had to be baptized in the church before they get married. So they got married, but my dad wasn't spiritually enlightened at that point. So then I'm going to make it short because then there is a war happening in our country in 1971, and then they had to flee from Bangladesh and they became refugees there in Burma. So. And then they used to see that my mom and there was another family. They used to pray every day. And my dad used to make a fun with them, like, whom do you pray? Who's going to send you money here? Because they don't have anything else. So, and they used to pray every day. And then at one point of their staying, when they were staying there, they received a letter. There is no name who sent it, but they found in the refugee camp in Burma, God supplied money and to my mom place. And then my dad was so surprised because it's impossible and there is no name, but there's money came. Then my dad, he's a very science oriented person. So he always he never believed on God or anything. Then that made him to say, okay, let me read this. Who is this really God about it? And then he found God, like God found him right away. And then he switched his life like a 180 degree. And then he didn't go back to he was on cancer, like an oncologist, a radio oncologist. So he was making so much money because he has a private practice. So they didn't go back to private practice. They came back from Burma, which is called Rangoon. Then they joined to the missionary hospital. They welcomed my parents both together, and they became great family with this missionaries there in Malungat Hospital, and then they stayed there. And my dad he had 3.5 years life of Christian life, but he became so close to God. And my mom said he became better Christian than her. And he started preaching at the morning, the gathering they used to have in the missionary compound. He used to run that. So he had a 3.5 years life, and then he died from a heart attack. And then my mother had to raise me and my sister.
How old were you when your father passed away?
So I was 1.5 years old when my dad died.
So you don't really remember your dad?
No, I don't remember anything, yeah.
And so what happened next?
So then my mom worked there for a few years. Then she moved to Bogra, which is my mom's dad's place. Then she moved to Chandraguna. It's another Christian hospital. She never got married. And she worked hard as a missionary doctor, but you have to think about she's a female doctor, and then living in that part of the world, which is like a men they kind of controls everything. So and then she have to work in a higher level because you don't see that many female at that age, that culture group. So you can see a lot of struggle, but God has blessed us so much. So that's my job. I wasn't great kids growing up. Because my mom used to go to work from 7 to 5, and they had to do on call. So she had to work day and nights. That's the missionary works. Because they're on call, they stays on call at night. They have to go for delivery, C-section, any surgery they have to do, and then also have to then do the outpatient. So think about it. A boy is growing at the house. like a parents, but no parents. So I didn't grow up with an educational level. My educational level was so down, like there is no structured education I got. And our house was like a kind of missionary house because me and my mom used to live. So everybody comes to our house, like even for any missionary comes, they live with us, stay with us. So I'm growing up with that. People come with a different story. I hear those stories, and then any evangelical people come. They do run the evening prayer meeting, and they do the healing ministry. So I grew up that way, watching healing ministry, watching supernatural power works, watching the sickness. Gets better. Hearing people who doesn't kind of hear, they can hear. I see the demons coming out. So all those weird thing that I grew up. It's my mother's life completely was a miracle life because she used to get whatever money she used to get. She used to give the money, like whoever needs the money, she gives them. But I know that if she have to go from A to B, God will provide the ride. If she have to go to any international flights, someone gives the money for the flight. So my faith, God was putting all those stories and building up stories after stories in my life. So I always go back. I saw those miracles. I saw those miracles. So it's, nobody challenged me until I went to my medical school. But my faith was building up through that. Oh, I met Masuma. Masuma in my medical school, that I found her. Like we met each other first year. And then we liked each other. And then the story, a little bit, but she came from Muslim background and I came from Christian background. And then,
and of course, you come from very much a Christian background, and she comes from very much a Muslim background. And
yes.
So you two young to-be doctors meet in medical school.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in a country that is predominantly Muslim, that's a big problem, relationship between a Muslim and a Christian that leads to marriage, especially a Christian man and a Muslim woman.
Yes. That is a completely no thing in our country. Yes. So after we met, we tried to talk to each other. Like, okay, I was trying to preach her about the Trinity and all those things, but nothing worked. But so my wife has her own story, but I'm going to go my side. So in the process of knowing each other, and God is working through both of us. So we met a guy. He's a direct descendant of Abu Bakr Siddiq, who was one of the Khalifa of Hazrat Muhammad. He's 36th descendant of that. And so God, we found him on the road. So we met this guy, and he invited us to go to his house. So then we started going to his house after medical school, and we used to read the Bible and Quran, everything. So days after days. So then what God did through this guy, he just opened the door, and I started understanding the God's word, literally words, what is meaning.
So was this man a Christian?
The guy actually from Muslim background, because he's a direct descendant
of a prophet, but he became a Christian. He converted to Christianity.
Exactly, yes. But his conversion also is not by any human being. So he came to know God by through his dream. So nobody trained, nobody taught him, so he has just that's what he always told us, like read the book and just go to the book only. Don't listen to what other people thinking. So we just read, and when I was reading, then this is the first time I'm understanding all the words, what Jesus trying to say, what God's trying to say. Because I was Christian, but I also was very rigid with the words. I used to talk to my friends, but there's also a limit. I never able to go from that Christian boundaries, because I always judge them. You have to have this, follow this. I always thought God in a small sector. But when when we started knowing more about God and knowing more about His love and knowing more about His simplicity of His spiritual journey, that kind of break down our religious boundaries. And as we're still growing and still helping us to not to consider as a religion as more as like a spiritual perspective. But after we got married, then I had to live with my father-in-laws before we come to USA. So which wasn't easy for me, not easy for them too, because I am coming from Christian background, and I have a boundary. When you grow up with a Christian family, though we love our neighbors, but still it's not easy to love something that they are not in your culture. And God put me in a place in like a Muslim families, inside the Muslim families. I had to stay there because I don't have any option, because the child was born, our oldest kid born. And they're helping us to go to medical school. So I have to continue my medical school, and while they're helping to take care of our kids. So I had to, and they have a festivity. I have that, and they have they pray. They do their prayer 5 times. All the culture is going here. I'm fighting with all the. It's a comfortable, but also not very comfortable, because you feel like you're out of water. So that's a process, and that's the process God started. He's kind of cleaned me up, like, okay, Peter, I'm going to take care of all the proudness of whatever you have that you grew up. Because God never, even if you look at Jesus, He never talks about religion. He never talks about sin. He always looks at the heart, and He always only cares about that person's inside thing. So even after that one, that helped me to process. And then after we came back to USA, our marriage, that wasn't that easy. It still is not easy, because we had always come from two points of view. I come from my point of view, and my wife, she grew up in a Muslim background, and they're very rich families. She coming from a very rich family. I'm coming from missionary outlook. So we always had to have a difference, and so God is processing through me still.
So it's interesting, because when you were growing up and kind of being formed, you were in a country where Christianity was the minority. That was the small group, the sort of the outliers. And then here you are living in a country where Christianity is the majority as a religious group, and it's a fairly comfortable existence. It's not associated with the same challenges that your mother and your parents were facing. So where do you feel like your faith was at its strongest, back when you were living in Bangladesh or here?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Yes, it's interesting enough. More resistance makes you more stronger. So yes, my faith, I think our faith was strongest when back in our country, and back all the difficult trial that we were going through. Here we came, and then God has blessed us so much, and He did another big miracle, that I got residency program here, which is unheard of. Without even any interview, I got that position. Without any application, I got the position. Even before I applied that residency program, the person who is the medical director, he offered me the position, which is never heard of it. So at the same time, God is building up in this miracle. So our journey and God's miracle and our faith. But there is no way I can ignore Him anymore, because of the layers of miracle that He has done over the years. So if you ask me, do I trust on God? Do I have a huge miracle or a huge time that I had, like an eye-opening time, as Paul did, and then Paul had, Jesus came or someone came and showed up? No, I don't have any moments like that. But but looking at back and how God worked through my whole life, there is no way, there is no way I can ignore it. I feel like I'm always with him and always in the journey with him. And he's always manipulating every single aspects of my life, getting my job, getting my position, getting my business, whatever I do, everything someone does for me. I don't do anything, and I just go through the flow, and I enjoy, and I give him thanks. But at the same token, going back on that, coming back here in USA, it was a difficult journey because Masuma, coming from Muslim background, she always wanted to stay with the Muslim, like she wants to be acknowledged by the Muslim family, and I also try to be acknowledged by the Christian family. So there is always a pull and push, but at the same time, God is processing both of us. I have learned so much within this process: how to love someone who's not lovable, how to love my other people that we call Christian people call neighbor, but love them as without boundaries. So God worked through me so much to love her family. Now is that stage that I love them like more than, same as my family, more than my family. So God is processing through that and showing me that. And at the same place, I don't know. I'm sharing with you. I'm sharing at this time because I in my medical school, during my residency program. So in my second year, we have to understand that we got a call from Bangladesh that my online started. That we got a call that found my mom dead in her room. So that was one of the accidents that happened in our life, and then so that has another impact on my journey because that kind of shook my whole who I am. That was in second year of my residency here, and then so that I couldn't go back to my residency program for 3 months. I didn't want to go back to residency program, but I went back. But I don't think I would have come back to my life if God didn't do all the work that He did over the years to prepare me to handle this one. So that's another story of my life. That
So, what happened to your mom, Peter?
So that's an accidental death that happened to my mom, and we don't know the exact story because nobody was at home. My mom was in the medical what do we call missionary compounds, but they found her body in the room. So it felt like that someone killed her. But autopsy didn't show anything else. But yes, so that was not a natural death. So then the question comes like, okay, what happened here? Where was God to protect her, who has been serving as a medical missionaries and who's lost her husband when he was her marriage was 4.5 years. She had a faithful journey whole life, and we saw the miracles after miracles. And she was a missionary all over the places. She had to go all over the places to give the lectures, preaching. She does her work, and then this is her, and this is the fate would be like this. So that was a huge question to ask, but God has prepared me over the years to answer that questions. So that's kind of another not interesting, but.
Well, that is very important. I feel like I want to pause on this a little longer because I think that's a very important part of your faith journey. That would be a lot
Yes.
for anyone to process, whether you're a super mature Christian or you're very young in your faith. Your mom was the main person in your life, obviously, since you were 1.5 years old. So the parent that raised you, I'm sure there was hardly anyone closer in your life than she was. And so to experience that type of loss, and also without a good explanation to that, that had to be completely devastating. So did you feel angry at God at that moment?
Interesting. No, but I didn't want to read Bible. I was like a blah, like a pretty numb for a few months, but then I know. Then I started reading the Bible. I was fighting with him. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to have no interest about anything. But yeah, no, this was a challenge for a while, and still it challenges me. Um, but also he's always with me. He always give me the answer of all, because there is no answer, but only he can show me that is the Jesus' crucifixion. But I also understand that David doesn't want to give any credits to human being too. So other than the cross, there is no answer of that. So, but also it tells me that whatever the death is just a door from one place to another, one side to another side, but you go to God's lap right away. So yeah, he's in so death is, to me, is like it became more like a sleep to me, rather than really what you see. God doesn't see the way we see this side, and other side God sees coming home to in his lap.
This is very powerful. You know what you said. I think this is a great word that you said, that the cross is the only explanation to that and the only way to reconcile that. I think that you figured it out, and true, the pain of that will remain with you, and again, only God can heal it. But it's also very true that she was
Yeah.
promoted to a higher position. She received her reward in a
Yes.
sense. And I think that through that time of you dealing with that, and accepting that as God's way of promoting her, it's probably also helped you
Oh yeah,
grow in
yeah.
your faith and strengthen you in your faith.
No, I don't think I can come out from that. Is from his love, actually, love and care that he does for me. It does for all my family. So it's more than more than, yeah. Nobody can do that. So and then yeah. So not only the cross, but think about it. Jesus had to do the same thing. Like, yes, every whole thing and the whole wall in his hand, but he had to die this life. He had to die this way. Then you wonder, like, who is stronger? Is the devil is stronger, or the God is stronger? Why? But this is all about this. This is all about how we do in the fleshly ways. Fleshly way you lose, and then you gain everything spiritual. I think there's a whole journey is like that. Unfortunately, this is how it is. The religion it is. This from God's to God's ways it is, not the religion.
Well, I also always think that if we fully understand the reign of God, the kingdom of God, we recognize that his kingdom is the upside down kingdom. It's
Yeah,
opposite to the worldly kingdom. And what the world considers a loss or
yeah,
defeat or failure is actually the victory. There's no other religion where God is the servant that washes the feet of his
yeah.
children. There is no other religion
No,
like that in the world. That's where it's so drastically different from Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism. It's the superior concept altogether that literally turns the world upside down, and that's the power of Christianity. And I think that in that journey that God chose for you, as challenging and at times painful it is, I think it is his way of at displaying his power in you. Through the moments when you're the weakest,
Sure.
he's the
I
strongest.
agree. Yeah. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Peter. And like you said, it's not finished yet. It's the story that is still unfolding. And I do believe that the best is yet to come, and that God is going to continue to do incredible things through you and your family, your children. I can see that in them, that heritage that He deposited in them. And I just look forward to watching all this unfold.
You're right. Amen. No, God is good.
We don't have control over many circumstances in our lives, nor do we always understand why bad things happen to us or those around us. Peter's fascinating testimony shows that our openness to God and our depth of relationship with Him helps us navigate life's most difficult moments in a way that brings glory to God and prevents us from becoming bitter or hateful. At World Missions Alliance, we believe that changed lives change lives. If you have had a profound experience with God, you are equipped to help someone else. Visit our website, rfwma.org, to find out how you can discover your greater purpose and tell others about Christ. By the way, please consider supporting this podcast. It reaches people in over 86 countries across the world. In some of these countries, people don't have access to the gospel. They can't purchase or download Bibles. And listening to inspiring stories of God's goodness may be the only way for them to encounter Jesus. Again, visit our website, rfwma.org/forwardgive, and any amount you wish to donate will be a huge help and will be greatly appreciated. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Limitless Spirit Podcast. Until next time, I'm Helen Todd.
Limitless Spirit Podcast is produced by World Missions Alliance. We believe that changed lives change lives. If you want to see your life transformed by Christ's love, or if you want to help those who are hurting and hopeless and discover your greater purpose in serving Christ through short-term missionary work, check out our website, rfwma.org, and find out how to get involved.